डॉक्टर्स का सबसे भरोसेमंद सैवलॉन एंटीसेप्टिक लिक्विड है कोविड-19 कोरोना वायरस पर असरदार।
Hello and welcome to Expressions from the New Indian Express and Savlon. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Rao. We know it's a very busy time for you as Chairman of Critical Care at Gangaram. I think you're in the thick of a terrible, terrible trauma. Can you tell us where we are at currently, Doctor? We hear so much about the second wave, the impending third wave. Where do you think we are, Doctor? You're right at the front line.
See, these are speculations for the third wave. I mean, the experts say, the epidemiologists say that there will be. The only thing we know is that we should be prepared for it, whether it comes now or never.
Right. So, Doctor, do you feel that we're prepared for it? Because in the first wave, we got some time during the lockdown to prepare in terms of oxygenated
So
beds. Do you think
again,
we're
on the
prepared
third wave,
for it?
if it comes, when it comes, whether it comes.
Where do you think we went wrong? Where do you think we went right in this battle against COVID?
No, it's not a question of where we went wrong. I think is what first wave, where the challenges were different. We did not know what we are facing. We
Right.
did not know how to prepare ourselves. And there was a lot of in knew everything about the virus, right? We have the experience of the first wave with us. But we did not anticipate that the rise will be so sudden and so sharp. Had it been like the first wave, we would have sailed through very easily. So of just over 1 month. And that nobody, no country in a month's time, going from such a small number to 4 lakh new cases every day.
Doctor, you said the learnings from the first wave was quite different from this, the spread and as well as the speed of the spread. So, what are the things that we're learning from this second wave? As you grapple with this second wave, what are the things that you're learning?
See, for caring for COVID patients, we require, let's say, the location or the what we call as a theater, where we look after these patients, start right from home and comes to the tertiary care.
Right,
Now, home is something that you can, add capacity to do very fast.
right,
But when it comes to the hospitals, you can't add beds. You have the same number of doctors, same number of nurses. Even if you were to divert them and say, all right, you will not do routine care, there is a finite number of patients that we can see in hospitals.
right,
Because after all, the beds are also limited, the human resources limited, and the supplies, whether it is oxygen or drugs, everything is limited and can be increased, but over a period of time. So what we have learned in this is that unlike the first one where we thought that we can increase capacity or the capacity building can take place simultaneously as you are in the surge,
right,
we learned that that will not be possible.
right,
You have to create the capacity before you hit the third wave,
right,
because the third wave may just fizzle out. It may be a small one, and it could be worse than the second wave.
right. So there has to be excess capacity in the system.
Absolutely.
Right,
Now, when it comes to excess capacity, what are we talking about?
right,
You can't produce doctors over 6 months. You can't
exactly.
produce nurses over 3 months. You can't add beds unless you have this manpower with you. All right. So we have to add to this capacity. And what we did this time, we can do it very well. Say, for example, medical students.
Right,
We can get allied healthcare professionals, but they are not tuned to this kind of care. So this is the time when we should start preparing them, teaching them, training them to get ready for a third wave if it comes.
Right.
Just putting them there doesn't serve the purpose.
Exactly. So, are there short-term courses that are available or that can be designed in the next couple of months for such an eventuality?
For the mild patients and let's say the moderate, but towards the milder side.
Right,
When it comes to the severe or the moderate, then it has to be the hospitals.
right,
And that is where you will need professionals.
right,
Those who understand the disease, those who know how to treat the disease, how to support the systems.
right. But, doctor, as you said very rightly, you can increase the capacity at home, but you cannot increase the capacity, in hospitals. So, can we devise a system whereby these healthcare professionals that we train in a short period of time can actually be deployed in homes uh, on obviously not a regular basis, but on a basis that can help people to self isolate at home.
Yes, we can do that. We
Right,
should do that.
right,
And second thing is that, we in this time we noticed that the triage system was left to the patient.
right,
That means if I want to go to a tertiary care hospital and I'm only, let's say, having mild symptoms, I can still make it there. That should
exactly,
not happen.
right,
So the proper utilization of scarce resources is something that should be planned well in advance. That who goes where, who's responsible to send that patient where, and if the patient comes to the wrong destination, then how do you reroute him?
right, right.
What
So,
we do is you
yeah,
deny him admission
yeah,
and then put him back on the road
exactly,
and let him figure out where do I go. Now
right,
that is not on.
right. So, how do we deal with such cases, doctor? How do we have a system where this person who is turned away from a hospital because, frankly, even the hospital cannot take care of him, it has no capacity. How does he or she know, okay, if I go home, one, two, three, these are the things that I need to do, and Y or Z can help me?
One is, as I said, in the home they have a lot of questions. They are after all lay people. They don't know what to take, when to take,
Exactly.
how to take, and
Yeah.
all. Second is the supplies. Where do I get oxygen? Where do I get the medicines? Third,
Right.
what do I do if I have this symptom or that symptom? When do I get out of this isolation? So these are the questions which can be easily dealt by having a cell which makes all the arrangements for them or answers all the questions to them. Most of the questions are repetitive.
Right.
They all have the same kind of questions.
Exactly. Obviously, because the symptoms are more or less the same. So, doctor, basically, you can use technology to answer these questions in a
Yes.
centralized war room kind of place. So, do we have any practice that you've noticed in any of the states where this has been done successfully?
We have used technology when it came to the app, creation of the app,
Right,
when it came spreading the information about COVID. So a lot
right,
of people could access web, internet. They could read whatever they wanted. This is a different thing that we have access information in the web. We have a lot of wrong information on the web.
right.
So that is where you need to create an authentic kind of information cell, which people can then access and get information from.
Right. Doctor, can I also now ask you to focus on two things? One is post COVID care, because we are also seeing a lot of new things that are coming up every day. You hear something about black fungus, white fungus, which are also creating fear and paranoia. And the other point being, now the those patients who were suffering from non-communicable, from non-COVID patients, now, those will also have to be dealt with eventually by hospitals. Perhaps they were being turned away or surgeries were being postponed. So there are two aspects to a situation where we're looking at post-COVID, post this peak. Could you focus on that, sir? Firstly, of course, post-COVID care. What are the things that are coming up which you feel require further study?
One, we don't know much about this virus.
Right,
So whatever we are facing is the leftover of the active COVID period.
right,
That's what we call as a post-COVID.
right,
So we have a lot of patients who have recovered from COVID. So that means they have no virus in them.
right,
But whatever that COVID had to do, they are grappling with that.
right,
So they are on oxygen, they are on ventilators, they cannot work, they don't have the stamina, or let's say the effort tolerance has gone down drastically. So those kind of things, some require hospitalization, some can be managed at home.
right.
Then these patients do suffer a general loss of health.
Yeah,
When they don't bounce back, just because you are out of COVID, you don't bounce.
exactly. It takes a long time for
It
many
takes
of
a lot
them.
of time.
Yeah,
Yes. And there are many of them who are in active service.
right,
So the challenges are not only your health. The challenges is they are much more. It is all about what you are.
right,
If I'm working somewhere, how many leaves can I take? Will my leave be without pay?
exactly.
How will I support my family? So those kind of things. And those who are in the hospital continue to be in the hospital. Their big question mark: when do I get out?
Right.
How do I get out? What will my condition be when I am discharged? We still have not found that answer because we are just about a month into this.
Right,
As the time passes, we will know how many of them actually uh, go back to normal life.
right, right. Because a lot of patients that I've spoken to, and you know much better, suffer from terrible exhaustion. They can't work for more than, say, half an hour or an hour in a day. And it also causes psychological problems. So
Psychological
that,
problems are added because of many factors.
right, right,
One is health.
right,
The other one is you've lost your, near dear ones.
right,
Everybody, or I think, whole lot of families have lost more than one family member.
right,
And you can understand if the bread earner goes, then the whole family comes under a different kind of stress.
right.
So there are a lot of issues which are, kind of still need to be handled, taken care of.
And especially as someone who deals in critical care, doctor, you have seen how families suffer when something terrible happens to their near dear ones. Sometimes they need a special kind of support. But right now, doctors and nurses are not in the situation where they can give them so much time and energy, right?
The issue is that patients' relatives are not in the hospital because of the COVID.
COVID, right. So you
So
don't
they are
have
not
that interface,
visiting. So we have no access to them. By and
right?
large, we are talking to them on phone.
Right.
So all the
That must
information
be a
is
new experience for
absolutely.
doctors as
So
well,
it causes a different set of challenges for us.
right?
Normally, what we do is when we counsel, the whole family is there.
Right,
But when I am counseling on a phone, I am counseling one person in a family.
right,
So whole lot of them feel left out.
right. So even for doctors, we'll come to that later in a bit, doctor. But the challenges for doctors and nurses as well has been enormous, and I don't know how all of you have coped with it. Also, that must be another challenge altogether. Can we come now to the issue of the other non-COVID diseases? Is there a backlog that you foresee that will have to now be scheduled?
Fortunately, in the second wave, it lasted very short time.
Okay,
So the backlog is not huge.
right,
And if you see, it is a bell-shaped kind. So it has come down drastically very fast also.
right,
So there has not been a period in which non-COVID care has been denied for too long.
right,
And then technology was used in teleconsultation. OPDs were running, emergencies were running
right,
even for non-COVID.
right.
So emergency surgeries were on. So I don't think non-COVID patients have suffered except in just certain subsets, say for example, cancer patients.
Right,
On
right,
chemotherapy, I understand that they had disruption in their treatment care.
right.
So those on chronic kind of thing, which require regular, let's say, either medication or visits to the hospital, yes, they had a disruption.
Right. Doctor, can we talk about the cost, the psychological and physical cost to the doctors and all of you working tirelessly to fight something that you're still not very sure of? How does it behave? How does the virus behave?
The cost to us is a very nebulous thing. What is it that the doctors was not knowing that they will have to do during their career? We all
Right.
know that there will be times when we will be overstressed, we will be overworked, and we will be kind of, mm, taken away from our family commitments.
Right.
But this time the challenge was that we got threatened.
Right.
When I take care, when I overwork, when I stay in the hospital longer time, I never feel threatened.
Right.
But here, working with COVID, we felt threatened because we knew
Right.
that we can get infected.
Right.
And that is where a whole lot of healthcare workers lost their lives.
Right.
This does not happen. Say, for example, had there been another disaster
Right.
and we are overworked, but then we are physically not harmed by ourselves.
Right.
We can be tired, we can be, whatever may happen. But this time we actually suffered because of the profession we are in.
Right. Right. And also, I think the daily cost of your PP equipment, being in it for 12 hours, 14 hours. Uh, I mean, it must have been like working in some boiler plant.
No, I think I'll say the doctors acted very professionally and they were very responsible for their commitment to the patient and they all took it very bravely also. So we
Right.
have no complaints that we were put through this grill. But as I said, when our own colleagues died, when
Yeah.
the healthcare died, people died, then we certainly expect the society to recognize the kind of sacrifice we have done, the kind of service we have rendered, and all selflessly.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there was nobody forcing us, but we want to do
Exactly.
it because we are healthcare professionals.
Right. So, did you have to do a lot of mentoring and counseling for the younger doctors?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Retaining them, encouraging them, because those who got, let's say, COVID themselves got COVID, they
Right.
came back on duty.
Right.
Not that they got it and ran away. So
Right.
the moment they were feeling good, they came back and started their COVID work again.
Right.
So that
So,
kind of moral support you had to give them when they were down, because they were
right.
also not sure that whether they will recover from it or they will end up on ventilator in a hospital. So at that time, their chips were down, as we say. So
Right.
you really had to support them.
Right. Right. You had to really morally boost their morale. So, Doctor Ken, may I ask? There have been two or three things that have been suggested. One, of course, uh, training some staff in this period, using this period to train the staff so that it can take care of any such eventuality. Second is the idea of this mobile rural health force that goes from district to district, knowing which area will become COVID positive, which will have a peak. What do you think of that possibility? Do you think it's something that is practical?
And the challenges in the rural area we know are very different, even in the normal circumstances,
Right.
because we are a city-centric healthcare system.
Right.
Secondly, our CHCs, sub-centers, primary health centers, they are largely into preventive kind of care,
Right.
and they have very little actually definitive care there. And then the facilities they have, they may be okay with a normal routine kind of diseases, but COVID requires a very, very different set of demands
Right.
for COVID care. So they will not be able to cope up. On top of that, the private hospitals are not there in the rural area.
Right.
It's the public, basically, public hospitals, and their beds are limited.
Right.
Doctors are limited. They cannot cope up with this surge. They can't enhance their capacity. The capacity building is very, very limited out there. So, in some way, you require people from outside to come and help you.
Right.
If you have enough, then you don't need mobile, just post them there.
Right.
But if you don't have enough, then mobile is the answer. That they move around, pitch in wherever help is required. And in this mobile, then you can keep adding. Suppose you have one van, then you can have 10 vans, then you can have 20
Right.
vans that way. That is what we call as an optimal utilization of the manpower.
Right. So, what would you suggest going forward, given that we are now in a situation where we may have to live with pandemics of this sort, whether it's so severe or not so severe? What are the uh, two or three things that you feel are absolutely essential that must be done for critical care to get to those who are absolutely critical?
Capacity building, man. See, critical
Right.
care is a lean specialty. It's a new
Right.
specialty.
Yeah.
Critical care is not limited to one specialty. A lot of specialties can give critical care with
Yes.
kind of proper little training and help. So capacity building is the maximum or the urgent requirement.
Right.
Capacity building of the doctors, nurses, and then comes the question of infrastructure.
Right.
Critical care requires a huge amount of infrastructure, costly infrastructure.
Right.
And most of, I think more than 80-90% of our devices are imported.
Right.
So world doesn't make that many if we require that many. So that means we have to make our own.
Right.
So somewhere the hospitals, the Indian government has to go for what they call Make in India. That initiative has to come in. But if you want investments in that area, then what happens after COVID-19?
Yeah.
If they do not make something which they can sell globally,
Yeah.
India is not the market. They will not be able to sell it in India after COVID. And no, I
Right.
am sure no industry will like to put money into a production line which you can't sell after 6 months.
Right.
So somewhere you have to have a technology transfer. Somewhere global industry has to set up manufacturing units here in joint collaborations so that the same thing which is produced here can be then sold globally. So
Right.
it has a future. Otherwise, the product will have no future.
Right.
If we make something as a knee-jerk reaction and say, all right, we have made it, fine, we made it. What will you do after 6 months? And after 6 months, right now, you are giving it free. Who's going to buy it from you?
Right.
Not even Indians. So
Right.
what has to be given to that? That whatever we make, it should be able to sell itself in future also.
Right. 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 So that's one, the capacity building. And but doctor, we also saw that in the first wave, for instance, we didn't even have enough PPEs, but we managed to ramp up capacity. We managed to produce PPEs at home, and we managed to get them to enough people, at least in the first wave. So you don't feel that we can do that with what is required for critical care?
PP is a different thing. PP is a fabrication.
Right.
All you need is cloth.
Right.
Okay, cloth can be imported.
Right.
But when it comes to the instruments,
Right.
you can't kind of assemble them and fabricate them.
Right. Right.
So suppose there are 5,000 components in that.
Right.
Each component is made by some factory
Right.
because the people who make ventilators don't make these components. So you
Right.
require backward integration. After all, who will make that for you? In a cloth, it is very easy. The
Right.
cloth is available. You hire tailors. You have a sewing machine, and that's
Yeah.
it. So
You just
ramp
make
up
it.
of
Yeah.
machinery cannot be done like that.
Right. Right. Can we talk about the ramping up of the critical care human resources? The human resources required
That
for
is
that.
what we call as capacity building.
Yeah.
And that is what I was saying, that to produce a critical care specialist, it takes you over 7-8 years.
Right.
So if you want to, you're not actually trying to produce critical care specialists.
Yeah.
All you want is somebody who can look after the ventilators, who can, under, let's say, supervision, do the routine day-to-day care.
Right.
So that is easy. If you
Yeah,
say, can we ramp up and have more critical care specialists? No, you can't.
right,
If you say, can we have a workforce which can help the critical care specialists in taking care of patients? Yes, we can.
right. And is there anything in the current system that needs to be changed slightly that can do that?
Training,
Right,
you have to have a module of training.
right,
Somebody has to train them.
right,
So that means there has to be a plan for it.
right.
How do we train? How many do we train? What do we train for? So all
Right.
those plans have to be made, and then it can be done.
Has the planning system failed us in fighting this?
No, I will never use the word fail. If we fail, we failed as a nation, we failed as a society, we failed as a world, because it was not India alone where we had
Right,
challenges. So, what I do say is that whatever happened, we should take lessons from it and prepare for the future.
right,
Whatever happened, we should do introspection, should do analysis, we should find out where all we lacked, whether it was absolute or relative, so that we can do something for future. Fighting for
right.
the past, I'll leave it to other set of people. I mean, there are enough who do that on the
There
TV.
enough to do exactly. Right. So, going forward, we also need vaccination. What would you recommend? How do we go about that? Because as of now, it seems that we are in short supply.
Kaveri, I'm not an expert on vaccination.
Right.
I
But
I
that's an
will not.
absolute. But that's an absolute
Absolutely,
essential.
prevention is the first thing.
Right. Right.
If you Since there is no cure, then you are left with prevention.
Right.
Prevention, and second thing is not only vaccination, prevention by your own behavior.
Yes.
So COVID responsible behavior has to be there. When we had this lockdown, how come the cases came down?
Yeah.
Just because we prevented human to human transmission.
Right. But we can't have a continual lockdown. I mean, it will
No,
be.
agreed, but
Yeah.
people can agree to behave sensibly.
Exactly. Exactly. Right.
That can be done in perpetuity.
Right, absolutely. And it is something that should now become second nature to everyone.
I always say that it's easy to find faults with others.
Yeah, you begin
Start
with
with
yourself.
yourself first.
Exactly. Right. Doctor, is there any other point that you feel is absolutely essential for us going forward to learn in terms of critical care?
So in terms of critical care, we have to understand that critical care is a very fragile thing.
Right,
Okay, it can be stressed very easily
right,
because we have very limited critical care facilities.
right,
Then we don't have uniform spread of these critical care facilities.
right,
Some states have good, some states don't have good.
right,
The one who don't have good, they don't have it good or bad everywhere.
right,
So there could be districts in which there is no critical care at all.
right,
And then there could be districts where you have all the hospitals
right,
concentrating.
right,
So the planning has to be like this, that in the public at least, you can't do that in a private,
right,
but in the public, critical care is non-existent.
right,
Okay, that is where the government has to bring in changes, spend money, create infrastructure, create critical care facilities.
right. And
And
if
then
we're
I
looking
will
at,
always say,
yeah,
I'm the chairman of NABH, so I always say that whatever you create, it has to be done with quality.
right, of course. There's no point in having substandard.
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. So, if one were to ask for numbers, what would the numbers be of such an infrastructure that one is looking at in the public sector?
The total, I think we have about 1 lakh ICU beds,
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah.
And this one told us that you can increase your number to whatever, it depends on the surge.
Right.
A significant surge can always beat the number of beds you have.
Right.
So triage is very, very important so that you don't get flooded by those who don't need ICU care.
Right. Right.
And those who need ICU care, this particular number that we had, I don't think we were falling too short of it.
Okay.
Like in our hospital,
Right.
we had whatever ICU beds we had, we were able to cope up most of the patients.
Right.
But the problem is when you don't have critical care,
Right.
these are the people who then keep moving. So they will go from one district to the other district, one state to the other state. This kind of thing should stop.
Right. Right. And they have to be dealt with at the local level.
At a local level, because health is a state subject.
Right. Right.
And secondly, we were left wanting for the machinery,
Right.
the ventilators,
Yeah.
monitors.
Yeah. That was a terrible blind spot.
Because we have to understand there are 3 levels of ICU.
Yeah.
In COVID, everybody wanted to come to the highest level.
Right.
The highest level has all the facilities.
Yeah.
But the one that we converted as a makeshift, and we put very sick patients in the lower ICU, let's say level 1 and 2, that is where we had problems.
Right.
Because they are not geared for high-end care.
Right. Doctor, is there one thing that you'd like to tell the world that you personally saw, you personally suffered, that you'd like to tell the world that let's not go through this again?
The only thing I know is that we faced it very bravely. At
Right.
least the healthcare did, and I'm sure most of the public did. Some of the people will keep, finding as to what went wrong. Let's look at the things which were done right.
Right.
Whatever went wrong can always be analyzed, can always be corrected. But whatever was done right, that is the one we should appreciate, at least for those who did it right.
Right.
So recently, in the TV, there is a lot of flack coming to us doctors that you
Yeah.
don't do this, you don't do that.
Yeah.
I wish that stops.
Right.
And those who are making that kind of statements should refrain from making such statements.
Yeah. I think because it's been a terrible time for everyone, but really for doctors who are right at the front line, it must have been enormous, the cost. And I can't even
You see,
imagine.
you have to understand, people will shy away from even coming in contact with a COVID patient.
Exactly.
Right? We live between them, we breathe between them, day in and day out. This protection that we have from PPE and mask is not 100%. We all know that.
Yeah.
That is why we got infected.
Right.
But that is our profession, that is our calling, and we stood up and we say, all right, we'll be there.
Right.
So, doctors and healthcare workers did what they were supposed to do. I wish everybody else also does what they
Absolutely.
were supposed to do.
I think no better message than that to end with. Dr. Rao, thank you so much for your time. I know you're very busy. We'll let you go, but all the very best. And thank you for whatever you do for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
डॉक्टर्स का सबसे भरोसेमंद सैवलॉन एंटीसेप्टिक लिक्विड है कोविड-19 कोरोना वायरस पर असरदार।